Hey, Marley, what's up?
Hi, Dr. John.
How are you?
It's nice to be able to talk to you.
It's even
I'm
nicer
doing good.
talking to you. Thanks. What's going on?
Okay, so I know that no one wants to talk about the election coming up,
Oh, that's all I want to talk about.
but
That's all I want to talk about.
but yeah, so I wasn't quite old enough to vote the last go round, but I am finally old enough this time. And
it's like being old enough to buy cigarettes. Like, congratulations.
yeah, I guess. But my question is basically, how do I manage or pick between sacrificing my morals and performing my civic duty?
Ooh, that's such a great question. All right, I want to dance on a really thin line here with you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to take the two, as of this recording, I'm still not certain as how it's going to play out. I've got my own theories, but they're my theories. And so we don't know how it's going to play out. So let's take the two supposed candidates right now and move them off to the side. Okay?
Okay.
Walk me through what you're wrestling with and how you've been trying to wrestle with it. And I'm going to end up giving you, here's the framework that I've been using for a long, long time for making these types of decisions. And I'll even tell you where I got that framework for. But I want to hear how you're thinking about it, how you're navigating it, and where you're getting stuck.
Yeah. So, I sit pretty in the middle of the road,
So
I feel
you're
like most
a
people
communist.
do.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. Yes, I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, so, and I guess it's just a lot of voices talking at me. I have, obviously here in Wyoming, it's very one-sided.
Right.
And
Well,
one of my
depending
parents,
on where you are, right? That's the madness of it all. But yes, I get what you're saying.
yeah. But I'm also in college, so then there's other people talking to me there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's just, I know there's not going to be a perfect match no matter who is elected. It's just basically, I'm just unhappy with either decision.
Right.
I don't know.
That's actually the most. And again, I'm not tipping my hat. And one of my favorite things is that everyone thinks I'm on their side. In fact, I'll even go as far as to let, like, inside baseball, me and my wife will never say who we voted for to each other. And that way, and I've been that way for 20 years because and I'm pretty certain I know who she votes. Actually, I didn't know. Actually, she surprised me because she told me a few years later on one of the elections. But that's for me. That is for me. And so, so the most general consensus I'm hearing out there is what you just said. Is everybody's just like, really? Like, really? And that's the most common sentiment I'm hearing over and over, personally, privately, publicly. And so then it's like this, I've got to pick a side, and it's really a gnarly moment, right?
Yeah.
So what are you thinking of doing?
To be honest, I don't want to vote at all.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, maybe it's kind of part of being young. Like, most of the voters are older adults. And
Not necessarily true. Depends on the voices you're listening to.
That's true too.
Yeah. I will tell you, the sentiment of I don't matter. The sentiment of you're making me choose from two different sides of a conversation that neither of which are presenting the whole truth, and neither of which do we feel like we're representing real people, right? Day-to-day people, day-to-day Wyomings who are Wyomingings, ins. I don't even know what do y'all call yourselves?
I pretty sure it's Wyomingites.
Wyomingites, there you go. Like, or Texans or Tennesseans or whoever. This sense that most people want to get up and their kids to be safe and them to have good neighbors and to go to work and work real hard and then go home. And the chaos and the madness and the cognitive dissonance and the one day we're yelling about a thing and then we go do that same thing the next day. Just the average person inside the bell curve, it's not just because you're young, it's because you're a human being with a beating heart. It's just like, I'm out. This sucks. I'm going on without it.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I spent most of my career, and this is where I get real convicted. I spent most of my career working with students, and a lot of those, every place I was, there was groups of students who had just come home from some sort of service. And it was older, returning students. It was real young students who just gotten out. It was students who were in some sort of ROTC, or they were in some sort of, domestic armed forces situation. The one thing that has been reiterated to me is I don't have the privilege of opting out because of the amount of bloodshed that's gone on my behalf to give me this opportunity. And so the one thing I would not caution you, the one thing I would encourage you on, everybody listening, is the easiest thing to do is to say, screw it, I'm out. The harder thing to do is to dig in and really ask yourself, what do I believe and why? And who do I want representing me to the world? And who do I feel safe with? And if things get sideways, who has some sort of track record that says they're going to be a lighthouse in the storm, whether I agree with them or not, right? I've worked for bosses. I don't agree with the day-to-day things, but when things get sideways, is that person going to be a lighthouse in a storm? Because that's what leadership is, right? And then there's the day-to-day. And so I get your impulse. I feel it too. Like, I'm just going to sit this one out. This is just, we're just running it back, and it's just the same grown-up sitting in a sandbox throwing sand at each other, not giving any direction as to where we're going, just telling us how stupid the other person is. And then that person just tells us how stupid the other person, like, we're not doing anything. I'm going to sit this one out. And I'll tell you, there's just been, in my opinion, there's been too many people have lost their life for to give me the right to be heard in this moment. And so the last election, I actually took my son with me. He was young. I think he was 10. And I took him in because I wanted him to see his dad actually bubble in these things and vote. And then I talked through, here's why I did what I did with my son. He was the only person in the United States that knew who I voted for last time. So here's my framework. And this is like, you can take it or leave it. This is just how I've navigated over the past, I don't know. I've voted in a lot of elections now, both local and federal. Number one, I don't vote to be on the winning team. Meaning I don't look at who I think is going to win and I vote for that person because I think they're going to win. I also don't vote just because a whole bunch of people told me I have to vote for X, Y, or Z. I reject that wholeheartedly. I think that goes against the American spirit. I think the American spirit is like being able to say, I have the freedom to look up and see which leader I think is going to best represent who I want my family and us collectively to be. The second thing is I do my best, and it's hard. Who do I want to represent me in the world? Right? Similar to, like, I go to a local church. I'm a Christian guy. My family's Christian. It's a big deal to me to be surrounded by people. We're all wearing the same label. We've opted into this label. There are people who wear the label Christian that I absolutely am repulsed by. And there are people who I'm happy to get up and do life with. We vote differently. We argue. We complain. We have different opinions on cell phones and video games and all that. But I respect them as human beings. I love them. And I love how they are spending most of their waking moments as trying to serve their local communities and their families. And so I'm happy to share that label, and I'm happy to be represented by them, and hopefully they're happy to be represented by me. And so that's the second leg to that stool, if you will. So to reiterate, I don't vote to be on the winning team. I vote my conscience. Who do I think is going to best uphold the set of values that I think is important? The second one is I vote for the person who, either way or all three, depending on if RFK gets on the ballot or not in your particular state. Who would I want representing me out to the world, meeting with world leaders, dealing with international crisis, whatever. The third one is this, and I think everybody listening, and especially you, Marley, as a young, conscientious adult. And by the way, you're giving me hope for the future. Can I just tell you that? I'm grateful because I want people thinking through this. This is hard. This isn't just run in and be like, woo, and check whatever box that somebody told you, or that you listen to a particular Instagram echo chamber that has convinced you of one side or the other or the third party, whatever, and you just have got it programmed into you who you're supposed to hate. And then your whole life is not going forward. It's just looking backwards and reacting. It makes my heart full, Marley, that you're thinking through this and you're wrestling with it. And you got voices on one side, you got voices on the other side, you have your own conscience. I love that you're wrestling with it. That's the way the founding fathers intended this thing. Democracy is messy. It just is. And we don't have good models for messiness and tension. I'm glad you're asking these things. Here's the third thing, and I want to challenge everybody listening to do this. Take one calendar week, Sunday to Sunday, and do not go to a website that involves news. Don't watch a news channel. Don't, if you have a bunch of Twitter feeds and Instagram feeds, cut them off for 7 days. And then on the second Sunday, day 7, I want you to write out, here's what I believe. Not about people. I believe you should treat each other with dignity and respect. I believe you should tell the truth. I believe that you go to war for these reasons. I believe that here is how a group of people should collectively handle their money. Here's how I believe we should take care of or support the least of these in our communities, those on the margins. Go through and write that stuff out. And you said it when you called, Marley. I think 99% of people would, not 99, probably 95, would look at their list and they would find themselves a hodgepodge of the various narratives that we're getting these days. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, definitely.
I challenge everybody listening to do that. And then at the end of the day, do your research on all the candidates. Do your research on the third party and fourth party candidates, because sometimes you vote because you think this would be the best person given this group we have. And I've got to look myself in the mirror. And I think we've lost that. I think we just want to be on the winning team. So Marley, I'm not going to give you the answer of who to vote for. I am going to tell you you're wrestling with it is right. You're wrestling with it is hard. And hopefully that 3-legged stool I gave you, that's how I do it. That's how I've always done it. And I like to revisit, here's what I believe. And I also like to revisit, I'm not going to vote just because somebody told me to. And I'm not going to vote for somebody just because I was told, like, this is who we're voting for. Nah, that's not how I roll. And yes, by the way, for those of you asking, my wife and I have voted for different people. I think probably in every election we have. And it's not who you think it is. And I can just say that because we vote for way different people. And, man, turn off the news. Just turn it off. Go talk to your neighbor. Oh, we're not going to. You know what the news is going to be. Turn it off. Go talk to your friends.